Here we go. All right, friends, welcome back to another episode of the Strong Life Podcast. We've got a guest, Scott Mendelson, who I have heard about since my early days as a strength coach from Dave Tate. That's how I first heard of you, Scott. Dave Tate was traveling to work with you, Dr. Serrano, early 2000s. It was the infancy of the interwebs. And I'm excited, man, because I haven't had a guest really that can talk. I think you and I are about the same age, but you've been in this field much longer than I have. So you've seen these fads and gimmicks. You guys work with quote unquote normal people to all kinds of high level people. So I'm excited to have legitimate information to be shared with our listeners. And the listeners that I have, predominantly men. A lot of guys around my age. I'll be 46 like any minute now, creeping up. So as I said, when we were chatting, would love to talk about nutrition for men in our middle ages. I'm asked oftentimes, through social media messages about HRT and TRT, which I really don't know anything about. So, and also training as we get older. So welcome to the show, my man.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Yep. I think we've both been around a long time. I started in November of 1999. So I'm coming up on an anniversary here, and I did it in my college dorm room. And the goal has always been to try and improve people's quality of life, their performance, their body composition. Very simple. And I use a variety of tactics. I've learned many things by working with clients. And through infinityfitness.com, as you mentioned, I would think I was one of the first people to do one-on-one by email consultations in terms of training and nutrition back in 99. Dr. Serrano sent me some of his patients back then, and it was like a new concept. I know now a lot of people do it, but I've got a lot of experience doing that. I'm very proud of it, and that I've produced very good outcomes for people. And I work with Dr. Serrano on a regular basis. He's not far away from here in Columbus, Ohio. He's a mad scientist, as I like to call it, especially in terms of training. So we get a lot of training sessions where he's shouting at me and other people to get across, new things. He's definitely an interesting character. Very, very intelligent, draws a lot of patients with highly challenging problems. Could be normal people, but a lot of athletes, especially with hard to figure out injuries. And they need an objective opinion from somebody like him to get the right rehab program, to know whether or not they should have a surgery, because he's an independent voice. He's an advocate for the patient. He doesn't work for a team, for example, and those politics are very complicated. But on a daily basis, I'm exchanging hundreds, if not thousands, of emails on a daily basis with people all over and helping them out any way that I can.
Right. And what people may not realize, Scott, is Ohio is a hub of strength and conditioning. It was really like those 90s as a kid, mid 90s. I remember seeing a lot of bodybuilders coming out of Ohio. I'm not sure if you worked with Mike Francois, but
I met him, and he was Dr. Serrano's patient.
That's why I've heard.
Nice guy. Man, was he mammoth, at his peak. But yeah, a lot of bodybuilders, a lot of power lifters congregate around Columbus and other areas. Elite Fitness, with Dave Tate, is in London, Ohio, not far from here. Very bright guy, very bright people, working with him. Westside Barbell was about 45 minutes from here. And, the strongest people in the world operated in that gym. And I did have a chance to watch them train once. And I think this was also probably 98. And walked in there, sat down, shut up, and watched some really strong people squat, including Louis, who took time to answer, some questions on some things. It was really kind of them to let me just watch them, but it was an intense environment. There was no screwing around.
You went to the 850 square foot little spot.
I'm driving along and I'm like, where is this place? It's in a shopping center, at least it was, with the windows blacked out. I mean, it looked like the outside of a crack house. I mean, It was, and you go in and there's these huge guys, sleeves cut off, noses bleeding. I was like, what are they all bleeding about? And I assume it was the pressure.
Were you a bodybuilder at that time, Scott?
I mean, I was focused on body composition. Maybe I, trained, for strength, but I was there more to learn a lot of things, thinking if I was going to train strength athletes, these are the right guys to talk to. I was interested in a lot of what they were doing with bands and chains and compensatory acceleration and max effort work. And, you could quickly understand going in there that there was a level of intensity that you couldn't fake. And I say this very often to people, they think they're training hard and they're not. They don't know relative to other things. It's almost if you put a bunch of youth athletes in a competitive environment, they're going to have to catch on and compete with each other to kind of raise the level of exertion. They had such a high level of intensity and expectations of each other, in terms of their training partners. When they're squatting in the monolith, it's like, hey, it's your turn, adjust the load, adjust the bands, whatever you're going to do. You need to go because I'm up here in 30 seconds. And it was just a interesting environment, much different than during my short college football career, which was a complete shit show. In terms of how that strength program was run with this hit nonsense, put everybody on.
Where did you go to college?
Blow a whistle. I was at Indiana University for a short time. I walked on as a long snapper. I did that really well. Otherwise, athletically, I had no business being in the Big Ten, none. And the strength program there made me weaker and got me hurt. So it was kind of like I was interesting to learn from.
What's interesting is also he's passed away, but Dr. Ken Leisner, a long time ago, 15 years ago or so, we exchanged some emails, and he was going to like the Ohio State Strength and Conditioning Conference. It was going to be held at like Bowling Green State, and it was a convergence of a lot of strength coaches. And Dr. Ken was a HIIT proponent, high intensity training.
Okay.
And a big, he was trained under Arthur Jones. And, you went, so when were you at Indiana University? Mid 90s, early 90s?
97 to 2001. So during the time that I had my short periods with the football team would have been 97 to 98.
And that's interesting because Penn State, who I think I don't follow enough of it, but they were also a HIIT program.
Yeah, they were.
And a lot of these programs that used it, they succeeded in spite of that incorrect training. And there, you mentioned going to Westside Barbell in 98. I'm not sure when Louis was writing articles for Powerlifting USA, but there was anybody who would start training like that. That was the weirdo. High intensity training on machines, one all out set was the way that it was done. And you're right. It makes I think you could utilize it for building muscle because of the time under tension. Yeah. But for athleticism, no good.
Something I figured out pretty quick is I kind of observed things from a business standpoint, even when I'm 18, 19 years old. I said, all right, so you got this one strength coach who blows a whistle and tells the guys to change stations on a hammer strength machine. You don't have to teach them anything.
Yeah.
You just scream at them, put more weight on or whatever. It was very easy to administer. So I think that's why some of the coaches bought into the science, so to speak. It's like, well, how do I manage all of these guys? Because a football program has 85 scholarship players and, anywhere from 10 to 20 walk-ons, and you've only got so much time to train them. So what's the easiest thing to do? Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason why it caught on, in the college ranks. I don't know if many are still using it.
There's certainly pieces and elements of it. And like, even I think in training, when I'm training like big linemen who are heavy, who, aren't the best at doing pull-ups, I'm okay with doing lat pull down, or if I had a hammer strength, machine. And then you have kind of this opposite I feel has been common the past 10 years, is because younger kids don't watch Rocky and do push-ups and train in their basement and figure stuff out on their own. Kids are so skinny and undersized that I'm all right with some of these skinny kids just going on machines and doing lots of sets of 10 to 20. But do you know who invented hammer strength, or who was like co-inventor of it?
I remember reading things a while ago, and I know Arthur Jones, I think, was involved in that process.
It was his son, Gary Jones, which, hammer strength is like the second generation of Nautilus machines. And I think
Right.
they're great machines. But yes, now as you see like athleticism and what is required, too many machines will work against you. So you're born and raised in Ohio, Scott?
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland
Ah,
originally, and then I've been in Columbus since about 2001.
so I was just in that area for my son's baseball, Ripken, which in the
Yeah.
70s and 80s had my buddy Marty Gallagher was from that area. And that was like a serious powerlifting area. Kirk Karwoski was from that area, Mark Chalet. So why did you move to Ohio in the late 90s?
Because when I was working with Dr. Serrano kind of from a distance, when I was still at Indiana University, it made sense to move to Columbus, and I had the internet business so I could go anywhere. So I was like, well, all right. So I got in the car, showed up, and after I graduated from college there, and started working the next Monday. I had clients that I built through the internet, and also some patients that Dr. Serrano was referring me. And at that time too, he would have me work with him on some of the professional athletes in a limited capacity. I would do more nutrition work for them. He would say, all right, these are the parameters I want. Scott, build the plan. Because most of these athletes had a strength coach that was with them, and they had team people. So, I didn't get involved in that. And I'm lucky that I've been able to work with a lot of professional athletes who have great strength coaches in place, and they take care of that. Where I can help is on the nutrition and supplementation front. And then, sometimes Dr. Serrano is also involved separately on the medical front for any kind of complex problem they might have with an injury, or, even an everyday medical problem. He's good at finding solutions, for professional athletes, collegiate athletes. And then he sees a lot of executives too.
Right. So let's talk about nutrition, because when I look, my early background, I started bodybuilding as a kid. That was the information, late 80s, early 90s. And I trained at a Diamond gym from like late 1993 to like my third year in, I was going through my graduate school. So I was there for like 8 years. I learned a good deal of nutrition from those guys. Dorian Yates used to come and visit and share his nutrition and supplementation.
Yeah.
So it was great to be on the ground floor. Diamond Gym was like the West Side Barbell of bodybuilding. But then when I started getting into the strength and conditioning, I remember getting really tired of eating every 3 hours, looking at the clock. I remember being with, now we're married, but my girlfriend, I remember at the mall, I was like, oh my God, like I didn't eat for 4 hours. I got to get to the food court. I was going nuts. And I came across Ori Hofmeckler's Warrior Diet,
Yep.
which was probably one of the earlier iterations of intermittent fasting.
It was.
And by the way, I was around like 228, 225. I can't remember how quickly I lost the weight, but I felt like, I didn't realize it. And then all of a sudden I'm 202. Through skipping breakfast, having like a yogurt for lunch, and then working a lot in the afternoon, and then a lot of eating at night. So since then, you must have seen, and I've certainly seen, so many nutritional things come and go. I saw on an email chain we're on, Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale was on. So I've come across that stuff. Let's talk about men in their mid 40s, Scott.
So one of the things that men in their mid 40s have to understand is their digestive system, hormones, and many other elements are far different than when they were in their 20s. And conditions change. And as you know, it's not always the strongest that thrives or survives. It's the organisms, in this case, humans, that have the ability to adapt. And what you have to adapt to is understanding what your capabilities are, what the different challenges are. Yes, I do like fasting. I like to call it flexible fasting, just a term that Dr. Serrano and I sometimes use, because the length of the fasted period to best serve a person depends on a lot of circumstances. You don't have to start out with, I get this email all the time. I read an article about a 48-hour fast. Should I do it? No. I mean, if you haven't done any fasting before, you don't want to go through this process of torturing yourself. You can even start with 12 hours, and that alone can be very effective. Now, I think that if you're wanting to be aggressive with fat loss, you can progress. So I think to one of your original points, The idea of eating 6-7 times a day for a practical person who is working is nonsense. And I think it's counterproductive in most cases. And I've had this, argument with certain nutritionists whenever, and I say, listen, you're free to your opinion. I work with real people and I'm able to produce a certain result. You're free to do what you want. But some of them really want to hold on to this, that you need to activate your metabolism multiple times per day. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more to your ability to gain muscle, to lose fat, and have a high quality of life than just caloric intake. There's also the timing of meals, the macronutrient percentages in terms of carbohydrates, dietary fat, and protein. So if I have somebody approach me who's in their 40s and they want to lose body fat, a go-to is stop eating after dinner and fast up until lunch the next day, which can be somewhere between 16 and 18 hours. And that works very well to get people on track in terms of improved energy, and they will start to lose body fat, assuming they make good food choices, the meals they do consume. That's a very simple approach. I often tell people, listen, if you can pick one thing, start with today. Let's start with that in terms of, the fasted length, and then we'll start to work on a lot of nutrition changes in terms of the food choices. And before you know it, you'll be earning very good progress. And when I have people email me, a lot of them are in a panic for a variety of reasons. They noticed one day, it's like, I woke up and I don't recognize myself and my energy's low and all these things, and they want to take action. That's definitely a good way to do it.
So here's a question for you, and maybe some people listening could relate. So we're doing this podcast. It's almost 8:00.
Mm-hmm.
So today, I don't always skip breakfast, but if I eat a lot the night before, I'll skip breakfast. I often train in the morning, which is like a strength training circuit. I'll usually bring a lunch to my school where I work. So today I had 3 hamburger patties that I made with 1 total slice of cheese. And now I haven't eaten. So I will be eating a late dinner, and I'm in bed at 10, probably lights out at 10:30. So I'm not going to have a quote unquote normal 6 p.m. dinner time. Is that bad to eat so close before bed? I've heard some things. I can't even recall what I've heard, but it's kind of like I'm just doing what life allows me to do right now.
And I think there's your answer. So one, if you're going to be training in the morning, should you eat following? Yes, I do believe that's the case. So that is smart in terms of what you're doing. And I think you're fasted from that period following, let's say, that meal post training up until dinner tonight. Is that right?
Yeah. So, I trained this morning I think I was in from time I get 8:15 till about 9. And then I ate. Sometimes I'll come home and have eggs, but I didn't eat. I ate lunch probably around 11, those 3 hamburger patties. So not an immediate after eating. And I don't feel bad, but I'll be honest, I could lose. I'm probably 222. I probably need to be 202, 205.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna have
I think
dinner.
if you fast from that period from 11 all the way up to your dinner, that's a good fasted state. So eating your dinner too late. Well, I think it, like you said, life does dictate a lot of these things, and what are the best choices we can make. I think there is evidence, Dr. Serrano's pointed to research saying that eating more of your food earlier in the day can be beneficial for fat loss, and it has something to do with the body clock and the circadian rhythms and so forth. And I did review that. I have played with it with certain clients, and it does work well. However, is that an overriding factor that in your case is going to get you to where you need to be? I think there's a lot of other things that you could do first. So, I think the general period that you have there that you have going is good. One of the other areas where a lot of people run into problems is they use the same fasted lengths every day, and they use the same meal timing every day. And just like many other factors, the body can get stale with it. So I like to vary the length of the fasted period on training days versus non-training days. And even for clients that are maybe doing some kind of activity 6 days a week, because they're an athlete, for example, and they have the recovery capacity, maybe our weight training day has a different schedule and nutrition philosophy than a day that we're doing, let's say, interval sprints or, field work. Let's say if it's a, an off-season football player, he's going to go catch some balls, run some routes, stuff like that. It's a little bit lesser demand activity compared to weight training. We'll vary things strategically. So what does the 40-year-old, 40-something-year-old professional do? Eat differently on your weight training days than your non-weight training days. Change up the schedule.
Meaning, let's talk about carbs.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like years ago, it was like, earn your carbs, don't eat carbs, high protein,
Mm-hmm.
high fat. And then people
Mm-hmm.
were getting fat from that because they couldn't find healthy fats.
Yep.
Are carbs so bad, or is it it depends type answer?
Well, there's a lot of individual factors to consider. I'll give you an example. I spoke to a gentleman today. He works on Wall Street. His stress is very high in the financial industry. At the same time, he earns a lot of money. So it's like it's a trade-off, right? He's very sensitive to carbohydrate because his stress levels are very high. So his situation is different than someone else who has a lower stress level. In general, are carbohydrates helpful for body fat loss when used at the right times? Yes. And also the right sources, combinations, and timing is important. In general, to your point, or there was a saying, earn your carbohydrate intake. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that focusing carbohydrate intake during the meals following training is the best way to go. You have perhaps peaked insulin sensitivity at that time because you exercised previously, a big factor a lot of people overlook, especially in the bodybuilding community. And I do believe there needs to be some strategic use of carbohydrate intake. While that's being said, there are other periods of time where using a very low or non-existent carbohydrate intake for a period of time can also be very potent for fat burning. But I would say no longer than 2 to 3 weeks.
Going like a carb deplete or keto style eating.
Yeah. Look, when you deplete glycogen, can the body burn fat more efficiently? Yeah, it certainly can. And then at that point, targeting some carbohydrate, let's say every few days following training is very effective for activating many fat burning mechanisms. Something that Dr. Serrano and I discuss very often is macronutrient cycling, a term that he developed many years ago when he gets on the whiteboard in his office and wants to explain something to a patient. And what macronutrient cycling means is varying the amount of carbohydrate, dietary fat, and protein to reach a certain goal. And a way to do that is to compose, let's say, a certain meal on a certain day differently. So it's not too complicated. This is an argument I have with him all the time when he tells a patient, well, change this amount and this percentage every 5th day when the moon's this or that. Come on, people can't. He gets mad at me. He's like, well, they should write it down. I said, well, some of them just can't execute that. So going on a weekly schedule, I think is better, in terms of what do you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in terms of what schedule you have. That I do that for clients. And that seems to be a lot easier for them to execute.
What about, are there, if we're talking about carbohydrates that you like, or that you're like, red light, I don't like that kind of carbohydrate?
Refined carbohydrates are no good for anybody. I think that there are 2 different kinds of people. Some people can tolerate refined carbohydrates and be okay with them.
What's a refined? What's an example?
Bread, pasta, cereals, cookies, things like that. You put that more in the junk food category.
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of people that think that bread is a good food choice. I disagree because, the human digestive system, and I'm not an expert on this in particular, has not evolved very much over the last 10,000 years. Not dramatically, as it's been explained to me by people who know a lot more about the topic than I do. But yet the food supply has changed dramatically, right? Refined foods, bread did not exist, for cavemen, right? So the argument is our bodies are not well equipped to handle it. Well, when you're introducing certain ingredients the body doesn't respond to very well, then you're creating this consistent inflamed environment where digestion is compromised. And a lot of the body's daily resources are taken up by these digestive problems instead of burning fat and repairing muscle. So I tell people the easiest path to success is to eliminate, let's call them refined foods, bread, pasta, baked goods, things of that nature. Obviously, chips and other stuff like that as junk food. People, I think, realize they shouldn't be eating that while they're trying to lose body fat. But I like carbohydrates that exist in nature, and I'll try different carbohydrate sources with clients to determine which one creates the best response. So something, I learned actually from Dr. Serrano. He did this many years ago with bodybuilders. He would experiment long before a show, and he would try different sources of carbohydrates and have them take pictures of themselves and say, do you feel fuller? Do you feel any bloating? How do you feel? Because for certain people, some carbohydrates create an effect where blood, glycogen and water goes to the muscles and makes them look leaner, makes them look better.
Right.
Other carbohydrates can cause a lot of bloating. So that's something I experiment with too, to help clients realize what are the best sources for them. But they're always going to be things that exist in nature.
So funny you said how you feel. I was going to ask you about that. So for example, you also mentioned how our bodies are just metabolizing and are digesting things differently in our 20s. So like, I don't know, a month, 2 months, 6 weeks ago, we went out for pizza and like I eat pizza. Then that night, my wife tells me like, you're snoring like crazy. My mouth is all cottony. I feel like I have a hangover the next day.
Right.
And so, that evidently is like, all right, pizza is a red flag. But let's say I did that in my 20s and had like 3 slices of pizza.
No problem.
I didn't have this like hangover effect or snoring and weird things like that. So what is and you also mentioned gluten, which I was thinking, oh, what about gluten-free pasta? Like, does it?
I mean, look, if somebody's sensitive to gluten and they eat gluten-free foods, are they going to feel better? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
But let's separate that from the question of if you're trying to lose body fat and gain muscle, is that a good choice? Probably not in terms of, wanting to lose body fat. So to your point about you ate some pizza in your 40s, you didn't feel good, you had all these side effects, and in your 20s, you would have been fine. There's a couple of things that are in play. 2 that come to mind. One, the amount of digestive enzymes that you have are depleting every day. In your 20s, you've got all these digestive enzymes and perhaps they have depleted, perhaps they've run out. And this is especially true for people that used to do the 6-7 meals a day because perhaps they stressed the body, they stressed the digestive system, and it depleted a lot of digestive enzymes that should have regenerated. But maybe with age, they're another thing that just don't bounce back like they should. The other issue that comes to mind is people develop food allergies, irritations, and intolerances over time. Some people inherently don't respond well to certain foods. For me, I had a test done a while ago, and mackerel is on the list. I've never eaten it in my life, and I'm not going to. It's
a fish, right?
Yeah. So, but I've never eaten that. But there are other things on there that I've eaten too often, and they scored very high. And I noticed eating those things, I didn't feel good. So, it could be that you've had an accumulation of dairy over time that, creates a poor response in combination, with some other things too. But that is something I work pretty extensively with on clients, is that you need to avoid foods that are irritating you. If not, you're going to be stuck kind of in this perpetual hell of not being able to earn results. And that makes a dramatic difference for people. People are creatures of habit with food. They eat the same things over and over again and start to irritate them, and they can't figure out why. Well, telling you why. It's because you're eating the same things too often.
You got to switch it. And also just, I sometimes get these random thoughts, but I'm thinking you live in Ohio, also where I was in Maryland, passing through a lot of farm areas. Mm-hmm. I think about milk, like my kids drink milk, but I know, I remember when I got into like my early 20s, I felt like I hit this wall, and I would like always have a bowl of cereal at night. And I said, you know what, I'm going to clean it up like what I did when I was bodybuilding. And my first rule was get rid of like bread, dairy, no more drinking milk. And I remember my body like responded so quickly to that. But what about, you're in Ohio, and I did this a couple of years ago from Pennsylvania. I picked up raw milk, right? So is that like, do people in Europe, because there's farms in your
Yeah,
area?
I hear about people I know that get raw milk and like it. I don't, because I just haven't gotten around to trying it. I think it'd probably be okay. I've just never really had a reason to do it. But Dr. Serrano's big into farming, big. I mean, he operates, I guess, 2 farms technically. He knows all kinds of stuff
Right, I saw his,
about raw milk. He'd be a really good one to ask about
okay.
its benefits and kind of the BS surrounding why raw milk is not more readily available and stuff like that. I mean, he knows a lot about that. But no, I think it can be a good option for some people, but I don't know. I don't know much about it. I haven't tried it.
Now he sent me a video of like his property. Are you moving in that same direction to be self-sufficient, kind of, sort of? No, why
No,
not?
way too lazy for that. I go over his
That
house.
is so funny.
I'm trying to think, it was 5-6 months ago. He calls me, I need you. And I'm like, okay, this is not a good sign. If he says he needs me, something's dead. Okay. So like we're going in his barn and some huge animal died. I'm like, I don't even know what it is. And then he's like, you want to do the autopsy? I'm like, hell no, I'm out of here. But no, I don't. I like eating organic foods. Luckily, I have a
Okay.
source where when I want it, I just order the organic beef and I eat that every day.
Where do you order yours from?
Grasslandbeef.com. They are in Missouri. They're called US Wellness, but grasslandbeef.com is is their web address, and everything I've had from them is very good. I eat steak every day, different cuts. I rotate steak or ground beef. And I believe that the grass-fed beef that does not have added hormones is a different ballgame than commercially raised red meat sources. Right. And I don't have any problems. Sometimes people ask us, if they're seeing me eat at a restaurant, let's say it's someone I don't know, and sometimes I'll do a 24-hour fasting thing if I'm traveling, because if I know I'm going to go to a good restaurant, I'll eat a lot. I mean, like the waiters are kind of telling me, like, look, you can't handle all that. I said, listen, bring it in shifts. I know what I'm doing. I could send you some pictures. But, sometimes people ask, well, don't you have high cholesterol? Nope, I don't, because I don't eat refined foods. Like, you never eat bread? Nope, I don't. I don't miss it, and other things that, would be conflicts, for, blood work and so forth. I don't have any issues like that. And I think it has a lot to do with, yes, eating grass-fed beef, but also the absence of a lot of refined foods. I think that, when they are looking at a lot of studies of showing, well, hamburgers raise cholesterol. Well, when you have a bun and processed cheese and so forth, yeah, maybe in combination, it creates a problem. But, I've not had an issue with that. I think some of that's hereditary too, by the way. Dr. Sharon is also the one to talk to about, cholesterol levels and, what his view is on that for a high quality of life.
Right. So he actually I texted him and I want to get blood work done. And so I had a knee surgery last March, and I think my cholesterol is high. So they must have done a real basic blood panel. And the doctor was like, your blood work looks great. And a couple of years before that, I had blood work done, and my buddy passed away. You probably knew Tom Bellella. Do you know Tom Bellella?
The name sounds familiar.
He passed away recently, but he did a blood panel on me, and they must have taken like a dozen different vials. And he was like, all right, cholesterol's high, and it was interesting. I knew my blood work was bad. And so I went to like a quote unquote, a common doctor, and they were like, it looks great. So Dr. Serrano gave me the markers that I need to get a script for.
Yep.
And you were just mentioning, your cholesterol is good. Let's talk about testosterone levels. I honestly, I don't remember what my T levels were. I believe they were like average, but I feel great like when I work more, probably because it's like emotionally feels good for me to train.
Right.
But in our mid 40s, is there a frequency we should avoid in training, or is it so individualized, like what I'm explaining, how I feel better training more often?
That doesn't surprise me. I think it really depends on the person's recovery conditions overall. I mentioned I spoke to, an executive today in the financial industry. He's very stressed. He can't train every day. I mean, he's got to be more like a 45 minutes, 3 times a week with weight training, and then maybe twice a week, 30 minutes in terms of interval work. But I'm going to have him do certain things with his nutrition plan. I'm going to encourage him to try and improve his sleep profile. I'm going to try and tell him to try and reduce his stress level, which is not going to happen because he's not going to quit his job, nor should he. Perhaps he can deal with things a little better in terms of stressful events. But look, that's the nature of his job. But I'm also going to do things with scientifically engineered supplementation too, to accelerate recovery. But, one of the smarter things people can do is keep sessions relatively short. Focus on quality over quantity. And this is a fight I've had many times with celebrity trainers. Okay. I've dealt with a fair number of celebrities, which is very difficult because you have a lot of middlemen, right? So I get a call from ex music mogul whose cousin is the trainer, his other cousin's the chef. So they've got a power structure there, right? You don't want to rock the boat. And the problem with the live-in trainer was he was overtraining this guy. And I told him, I said, listen, you can't have him 2 hours a day, this and that. And he says, well, he's on me about earning a great result, and I only work for him. I have no other clients. What do you want me to do all day? I said, well, I don't know, find something else to do, but you're overtraining him. And the same thing with the chef. It's like, well, he likes to eat macaroni and cheese. I'm like, well, he's not going to lose body fat on that. But ultimately, when the chef goes and says, hey, Mr. Such and Such, what do you want for dinner? They got to do what they tell them. So the point is, when people are really motivated for a result, they tend to overtrain because they're lacking the right guidance. They're lacking people to tell them the truth. So as we approach the new year, in about 6 weeks, you'll have a lot of people in that boat that they'll overtrain. Then they're going to risk injury. They're going to risk, losing muscle, just in general being really lethargic. So I take a very conservative approach on training volume, for people. I think it's a quality over quantity thing is always going to put you in a better situation to succeed.
You were mentioning supplementation. Mm-hmm. So somebody like me, I take a good amount of D, C, magnesium, alpha lipoic acid. I'm trying to think what else I take. What the heck else do I take? I don't actually take too much B. Sometimes I'll take a B complex or B12. Let's talk about supplementing at this middle age, time. And by the way, I went to a doctor recently for a, what the heck did I have to do? I think I went for Xanax. I take Xanax before I fly. So I just had to get a script.
Oh, okay.
So they asked me what vitamins I take. And I'm like, yeah, I pretty much megadose on this. He's like, you pee it all out. But is it right? So Scott, here's the question. If I'm squatting and deadlifting and doing farmer walks and lots of calisthenics, I need more than the quote unquote normal guy.
Yeah. I think that the deal with vitamins is that you want to make sure you cover your bases, and you could get a test to discover if you have any deficiencies. Because if you do have some deficiencies in general, you're not going to feel real good. And that's something Dr. Sharano works on, consistently with patients. When he sees problems, there can be a vitamin deficiency. The idea is that, with all due respect to physicians, if I hear one more time this "you pee it out" thing, I'm going to lose my mind. It's kind of like, what is your basis for that? If they're going to take a vitamin, you could excrete some of the excess, but to make the argument that none of it absorbs or it's not beneficial, right. I just don't agree with that philosophy. So people should do nothing, So I don't in general agree with that. I think if you want to be more precise, look at the deficiencies, and you may want to have a multivitamin and then have some additional things, especially seasonally, to have more vitamin D, right. In the climate I'm in, where it's like dark at 4:30. Yeah. I think that makes sense seasonally, but you're not getting as much sunlight. But where I see a big bang for the buck in terms of somebody in their 40s or older if you're going to train hard, you want to use the right ratios of amino acids. And certainly I'm impartial to what I'm going to recommend because I do have a financial incentive and I'm not shy about that. That's, what I do. But the 100% MR and the muscle synthesis powder are two distinctly different amino acid formulas that Dr. Serrano designed based on many years.
It's a powder, correct?
Yeah, both of them are powders. And the interesting thing is he developed them. He had many different iterations of the formulas.
I was making all
kinds of things. Yes. And he actually tested with patients what produces the best result. And he came up with certain ratios of ingredients that we don't tell people about. And I have people all the time trying to knock off the product, that the ratios tell the story in terms of what's the impact on recovery, on body composition, and performance. And I believe very strongly that if you can accelerate recovery, that's what the 100% MR of the nervous system as well as the muscles, you're going to have better performance. Let's take somebody who's trying to gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time. Well, the better your performance, the greater the impact, all things being equal, on fat-burning hormone levels, on metabolism. You're also able to stimulate more fast-twitch muscle fibers, which have the greatest potential for growth. And you make sure that you recover, not just adequately, but recover very well between sessions. So by the time you get to the next session, you're fully recovered, so you can maximize your benefits. And BCAA has gotten a bad rap from some people. I don't know what you want to call them. They would call themselves experts that say they don't work. They're completely wrong. They're absolutely wrong. If you have somebody that's training hard, the right ratios of branch chain makes a big difference in rates of recovery, at the very least to reduce muscle soreness. So what's that worth to somebody that actually trains hard? It's worth a lot. But if you go into, a commercial gym down the road, you're seeing a lot of people in there that they don't really train that hard. So they don't really get sore and they're used to doing the same things over and over again. Well, that's not who I work with. I work with people that are more aggressive. And then the muscle synthesis powder is a scientifically engineered blend of free form amino acids. And those are great for improving body composition, specifically improving the ratio of lean muscle to fat tissue. And using those two pre and post workout powders with water, very easy, very effective. People feel better, their body comp improves. And also in that case, I don't need them to use a post workout protein. And this really pisses a lot of people off. I don't see that whey protein works for most people. That's my opinion. I think a lot of people are very sensitive to it. Right. They're going to build an allergy to it over time. And I think it's too little too late. And here's an example that I can kind of use to relate. While you're training, you're pumping a lot of blood in your muscles, which is good. It acts as a nutrient superhighway to carry nutrients in, to take garbage out. Well, if you take a protein shake following your training session, that's going to divert blood from your muscles into the stomach to assist with digestion. And you reduce the size of your highway. So why would you do that? And then also the digestive process takes a long time and you end up, the ratios of what's in that original protein change, so to me, it's too little too late. The 100% MR and the muscle synthesis powder, they bypass all the digestive hangups and they're getting the muscles, literally within seconds and taking advantage of the blood flow. So I tell people, hey, you've been using your protein for years. You've gotten a certain result. You say you want a better result. Try this. You let me know how it works. And overwhelmingly, I've gotten very good feedback on it over the last 20 years.
And there's whey protein, and what's the other protein?
Casein's pretty popular. They taste pretty good. They're easy to flavor, and that's why they're in a lot of bars too. But, they just, over time, I don't see them producing good results. And especially to your point, of situations are different in your 40s versus your 20s. Remember, if you drank a protein shake back when you were in good shape in your 20s, your digestive system was much different then than it is now. So you have to use different tactics. You may not respond well to the dairy proteins, the whey and the casein anymore. In fact, it makes some people really lethargic and bloated. That's not a coincidence. Your body telling you that just doesn't work for you.
Yeah. And also, so you're they're BCAAs, that's what it is in powder
the
form?
100% MR is branch chain, glutamine, taurine, B complex vitamins, and niacin. But the ratios of branch chain amino acids that Dr. Serrano assembled are far different from everything else on the market. And I don't want to get into exactly what those ratios are. I'm not going to do that, but they're far different. I would tell you that one of the mistakes that a lot of branch chain products are making is that they have the wrong ratios that are shooting insulin through the roof. And that is not a desirable thing over time.
Yeah. What about in like pre-workouts, which I don't use, but niacin is often in them. It gives you that flush feeling.
Yeah.
So would it be bad to have that 100% MR? Let's say some of our listeners might train after work. It might be late or it might be like a shift worker, a law enforcement. Is it not a lot of niacin in there? That's why
it's not. I don't think it's enough combined with the pre-workout product to create a problem. And pre-workouts are a whole other, category we can discuss. And that I think people have to be careful with how much stimulants they're using. And if those gradually increase over time, you can start to have a lot of problems with high stress hormones. That's how I would look at it. Yeah. But the pre-workout products for somebody that's worked a long shift, they want to go to the gym, I get it. But you got to be careful. If it becomes something you're using every day, I see that being problematic for a lot of people.
Right. I've never used pre-workout. And I always say, like, I'm 46 almost. I'm very excited to train. I don't know. I don't need it. What about, do you drink coffee, Scott? Are you a coffee?
Oh, yeah. Man? Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about it.
I drink the concentrate in the morning. I get those glass bottles. You're supposed to like dilute it with water. Yeah. Like the concentrate thing. I just drink the concentrate.
So it's the I forget what that coffee's called. Like it's already made, correct?
Yeah, it's like refrigerated, whatever.
You drink coffee cold or you
Oh yeah, I drink it cold. I'll drink it hot if someone's gonna make it, but I'm way too lazy to do that. I could not figure out a coffee maker. There's just no way. I don't think I have one anymore. I think I broke them.
What do you go with a certain coffee company or?
There's one called Chameleon. I saw it in the grocery store and I just order it, and I've got a bunch. I have just a drink fridge outside of the other fridge because I was taking up too much space in the fridge, according to my wife. So anyway, I have in this drink fridge, like this naturally flavored soda, Zevia. I like that.
Yeah.
And this coffee, and that's about it.
I'm drives me nuts when I forget a name, but Kenny Santucci's out in New York. Oh, Adam von Rothenberger. I think he's out in New York. No, not New York, LA. He sent me some coffee. The coffee's called Strong Coffee, but it has what's in they put it in like powders. It's supposedly good for your joints. Collagen. And the coffee tastes pretty good. I stopped drinking coffee. Actually, it was like a couple of years ago after going to the Nationals in Ohio. You're in Columbus, so it was in Cincinnati.
Okay.
So that may have been, I'm on like 4 years without coffee. Although when they sent me this coffee, I drank some of it and it tastes great, but I drink tea and I just put like a little drop of honey in there and a little dash of milk. And what I found was when I used to drink coffee, I always needed another cup at 3 or 4. And a lot of times I don't go home at 3 or 4. So I drink tea in the morning and I feel really good. And
I think people should cycle those. Like I'll probably cycle off this coffee pretty soon so I don't, build a problem with it.
Right.
I just get sick of it. So I'll cycle to something else. Green tea I like, that's always good.
Right. I think also like you and I are in places where we have the seasons. I know you have a longer, rougher winter than me, but my buddy Marty Gallagher he wrote about it in his book, The Purposeful Primitive, like seasonal eating. So, It's winter time. We're going to eat more stew, more beef, more hot meals, same thing like hot coffee. I want to dive into, a topic that I don't know anything about. So many people post it, a lot of celebrities, they talk about, I don't even know the difference, HRT, TRT, like, hey, you should be optimized. Like my friends who as well, they'll be like, Zach, you don't smoke pot and you're not on HRT. That's your problem. That's what they say to me. And, I'm a pretty like straight laced guy. And so And women also would have no, women, like, they get older, they're like, yeah, I'm going to get plastic surgery. So many women don't think it's odd for men as they get older to enhance. So are there do's and don'ts? Is this a area enough about,
It's
or
an
no?
area that I know from the perspective of working with clients all over the US and different
Right.
parts of the world. Many of them are being treated by doctors with TRT. So I'm able to see that they're earning very fast results compared to somebody who perhaps has suboptimal hormonal levels. I think the key is finding a physician that has the time and the skill to help you. You want to make sure the doctor is prescribing something that makes sense for you based on the blood work, and that's going to follow up ongoing. I don't have a lot of expertise, or barely any, on that process,
Okay.
but I can tell you it's becoming much more prevalent with doctors that are even family physician practitioners, family medicine, to use these types of treatments. And from what I gather, they're expanding quite significantly for a broader array of men, not only for cosmetic benefits, let's call them, but to improve quality of life. And I think that there's a growing number of physicians, and I deal with some physicians as clients too, that have told me they think, within the next 20 years, a much higher percentage of men will be using testosterone therapy to solve a lot of problems that are otherwise now being treated with medications or just other tactics that aren't working very well. So that seems to be the trend. What I focus on when I'm dealing with the client, whether it's somebody who I'm building personalized plans for, or somebody that maybe I'm just corresponding with email to try and help them out, is you want to do some things with nutrition and training, especially, that will help to naturally optimize your testosterone levels. One of the things is consuming the right sources of dietary fat, and making sure those sources are adequate is very important for natural testosterone production.
Dietary fat? What would be some examples?
Organic saturated fats are very good for increasing naturally anabolic hormones. And again, naturally anabolic, right? Testosterone is not a bad thing. Women have it too, actually. But for those to be naturally elevated, other good sources of dietary fat, cage-free whole eggs, nuts that do not have added oils, right? Nuts that don't have soybean or canola oil or cottonseed oil or any of that crap. The ingredients should be nuts and salt, and that's it. Avocados, extra virgin olive oil are other good sources too that come to mind. There are some fats in certain fish that have a higher dietary fat content. So salmon, for example, but you want to do that wild caught, for that. Also trying to control stress levels. And this is one, it's a challenge, when you tell somebody don't be as stressed. Well, that's easy. There's a reason why they're stressed, but the elevated levels of stress right now, nowadays, versus even 20 years ago, they're higher.
Oh, yeah.
And that has to be factored in. If people are constantly stressed, their testosterone levels, I think, could be depressed in that way. Perhaps their testosterone to cortisol ratio is not as good. But I think that's an environmental problem or a societal problem that we're dealing with for a lot of reasons. I think that avoiding overtraining is important too, for making sure you don't depress your testosterone levels. But, I would advise somebody that's curious about it to see a qualified physician that treats that, have them go through the proper protocol with you and give you, your options. It's not something that I think people should go and, go on the internet and just figure, oh, well, I'll learn from this or that. No, I think you need an expert.
Right. It's now they have these clinics where you go and somebody is an expert, but you hear guys like Joe Rogan openly saying, yeah, man, I take steroids and that's why I do feel good. You mentioned, utilizing supplementation and nutrition. Men are around our age who have a history of training, decades of training, started lifting weights in high school. They're now feeling the aches and pains. So supplements, you guys carry supplements. unless you want to mention other things to blend in, what, knee pain, shoulder pain, stuff like that, what is recommended in the
Accelerating
supplementation?
recovery, like we talked about, I think is in general going to make the muscles feel better. But when you're talking about joints, essential fats, the alpha omega M3 of the Dr. Serrano design is great for improving body composition and lubricating joints.
Yes.
Now, some people assume, that's just a fish oil. There's many, many fish oil products. It has a scientifically engineered blend of EPA and DHA, that's fish oil, that are toxin filtrated, but it also has CLA, GLA, ALA, vitamin E, avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, and flaxseed oil. And it's the combination of fats that the body needs that I believe has a great impact on joints and also improving body comp. Interestingly, something that Dr. Serrano's experimented with quite extensively is digestive enzymes to, as he puts it, modify inflammation. And he'll use the EZ14, the digestive enzyme catalyst, with meals for some people and some people between meals. And depending on what he's trying to do or what the problem is he's trying to treat, that has had a very big impact on modifying inflammation and helping people getting rid of a lot of aches and pains.
And all these are on the website?
Yeah, everything's on infinityfitness.com. And people really enjoy the videos that Dr. Serrano and I have done. We have a lot of training videos screaming at each other, but there's a lot of videos with him talking about, certain scientific advantages. And yes, people are constantly asking me for more videos. Well, it's hard to get them done because Eric's mind's always running in so many different directions. But, now the winter's coming, he'll be inside more. I'll probably have more luck getting, some new videos done. We've got a long list of different ones we want to do.
And just, this conversation's, now we were mentioning the TRT. Doctors are, or I don't know, people are taking it in their like late 20s, 30s. I felt like I was at I was at my strongest and probably best condition outside of being, when I was wrestling, up until probably like age 36, like 10 years ago.
Yeah, if they're needing treatments in their late 20s or early 30s, my guess is there's something else going on with the lifestyle. There's, I assume, a lot of people who are showing perhaps low testosterone levels in their late 20s and early 30s, are drinking or using a lot of recreational drugs. Just may have some lifestyle issues that depress those levels, and they start medication when probably they should have fixed some of these other underlying things first.
Right.
So that would be my guess there. I don't know what's the average age that people start with therapies. I'm sure there's statistics out there. There's different therapies.
Probably younger than they actually need to, because I feel like the amount of information that's out there confuses people. So now when somebody tries to research information, how to eat better, how to supplement, how to get stronger, simple things like, Dr. Kirk Parsley, even though he has a sleep supplement, he's like, listen, number one is go to bed at a regular time. And I've been doing it for a long time. So sometimes maybe I take for granted my knowledge, but if I start feeling a little bit run down, right now it's 8:40 p.m. I know, like, on those days I'm feeling run down, I'm like, all right, get to bed an hour early for this next 2 to 3 days, take the next 2 or 3 days off. And within 72 hours, I feel like a new man. So I'm going to link up in our blog post some of the YouTube videos you guys have. You have an Instagram channel. And it's funny, it's like, you guys are so damn smart. Other guys I remember early days going to you was BJ Gaddour, Brian Grasso. BJ Gaddour is like a big, fitness guy with Men's Health, Men's Fitness. When I first met him, he was actually like chubby, and now once the social media came out, he got ripped. And he's like, dude, he's like, people just want to see you shirtless and ripped. He's like, that's what makes the business go. But probably 10 plus years ago, I remember those guys maybe they weren't consulting with you, but they were using this 100% MR, and they were fasting Brian
Yeah, I
Grasso
mean,
lost a ton of weight.
I remember BJ, and I think I was providing some products and support to clients and so forth. I haven't spoken to him for a while. Like you mentioned, he's really popular on social media. He certainly understands how to use that effectively. And I think now he's focusing on a clothing venture, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't come across his stuff for a bit, but he's an awesome guy. And I just remember him being like a heavier guy. And Brian Grasso, when him and I did a podcast for his coaching group a week or two ago, I don't know how heavy he was, but he was super heavy. Like, I mean, he looked like he was 275. And
Yeah, I
then
don't know who that is.
Brian started in about 20 or 18 years ago, the International Youth Conditioning Association, the IYCA. Somebody
Okay.
else runs that now, but he was in the fitness industry and now he's coaching entrepreneurs. But I remember he just leaned out and I remember talking with him, and that's when I ordered from you guys. And Dave Tate, way early days, when transitioning out of powerlifting and doing body comp, I remember being on the phone with him and he was driving to see you and Dr. Serrano. He was in his car driving to see you guys. So it's been a long time, just hearing about you guys.
That's a long time because I don't even remember that. But I actually saw Dave. I went over to Elite FTS at their, relatively new facility. It's been there a couple, 3 years. And they did an event there. Someone else who was going invited me, and it was interesting to see people squatting. A couple guys squatted over 1,000, seeing all the equipment and so forth. And I just hadn't been exposed to that for a while. Just watching it was very interesting, but very, very smart organization. There, Dave understands what powerlifters and strength athletes need. And they've developed a lot of, great techniques and equipment. Absolutely.
Right. Do you train with, I always see the videos of you guys training. Is that like Eric's basement gym or?
That's Eric's basement. He's got a pretty good layout there. Probably we'll start training together pretty soon. I'm more of a willing participant in that. He likes to go Thursday and Friday afternoons, but when his patient load goes into the afternoon, it's harder for him. But I think if I pester him enough, we'll start on a regular schedule. But yeah, we get a lot of good stuff done down there. He's always looking at new things. He'll oftentimes, if a patient's visiting from out of town and he thinks he needs to instruct some training things, he'll take him there and go through some things. I might video that and then give that, to that person to help them out. So he likes having the gym for his own purposes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people show up that he invites, but usually it's not too many people.
Yeah. Somebody I had heard during a podcast, like they went to go work with him and Derek Jeter's at the house. He's like, oh, hi.
A while ago when the Columbus Clippers were the Yankees AAA.
Okay.
That generation of, some of those generational players for the Yankees, a lot of them, knew him. So he's circulated with, a lot of professional athletes, a lot. Now it's some of them will come to him individually. He will do some consulting, for teams. But athletes present, a lot of challenges. I think at times he enjoys, the challenge of doing that. And baseball is probably his favorite sport.
Yeah. So I've been to your website. I don't know if I've either signed up for it and didn't receive a newsletter. Do you guys have a newsletter?
Yeah, we do. And the problem is sometimes these ISPs are blocking it. So
Okay.
I'll forward it to you, but I send it out every month with, articles that Dr. Serrano and I write, and we have some accompanying videos, and it's a lot of good information that targets exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
Men in their 40s and up that want to be smarter with their time and how they're approaching nutrition and training. And something that shocks a lot of people is if you email me, I will respond.
People are shocked by that too. It's
because it's a different environment now, in that people don't think they can get as much individual interaction. But I respond to a lot of people and every day, and I'm corresponding with different people to help them with different questions. I might point them to a certain article we wrote a couple of years ago that answers their question and then follow up with that. So I really enjoy corresponding with people that want to improve. That's the only criteria that I care about.
And then people who want to go, like a one-on-one, they do the nutrition coaching with you. Do you do like a minimum of 3 months with them, Scott? What's
it's usually a 12-week program to start. And I'm very realistic with people, and that, you need some time to build some momentum. You didn't develop these problems overnight, right? So I had a lot of success with that. It is very labor intensive. You do have your share of frustrations, but I'm winning a whole lot more than I'm losing. In terms of helping people, improve their body comp, performance, and quality of life. I'm very good at solving problems and designing things that are highly advanced, yet simple to execute, and sustainable.
Yeah. I'm just thinking how busy the guy on Wall Street is. How do you communicate with him? Just through email or?
Email, and we'll try and talk. And there's a lot like him, and we'll try and talk when necessary. And one of the things that I've always had no problem with is answering the phone on Saturday or Sunday. Like, what's the big deal? If they have a burning question, if they have a problem, then that's the time they have to talk. I'm available, or I'll get right back to them. I think that solving people's problems and, doing that to make them feel better as fast as you can is a good way to, serve your clientele, to give them the maximum benefits. So I'm good at understanding how to communicate. What things do I need to prioritize? Because you're right. And when they're really busy, they don't have a whole lot of time to go back and forth all the time. You have to focus on certain things. And one of the things that I like to do with athletes too is they'll take pictures of their meals with their phone, right?
Yeah.
They got their phone all the time. So if all you can do is send me pictures of your meals that day, and that's the only thing you can send me, and not every day, then that's good information for me. I've got something to work with. I kind of know what you're doing. So I've developed a lot of time efficient ways to do things.
Nice. So infinityfitness.com. The Instagram is infinityfitness.com, right? .com.
Yep.
Yeah. I follow you guys. It's very, very good stuff. And oftentimes I always say the best information doesn't get a lot of traction because you're not doing, as I call, shock and awe. So I love.
I have like no clue what that is. And often I get unsolicited emails like, your Instagram sucks. You don't have enough followers. My response is, go fuck yourself. I don't know who, I don't care.
I get those messages
we've always
every
been
day.
About putting out useful things, but
Yes.
I'll be the first to admit, like, what gets you to 1 million followers? I have no idea. I haven't done it. I don't know how you do it. I know that there's a lot of people that buy followers, and that pump up their numbers. I'm not doing that.
I think, this question comes up to me a lot. Somebody actually just asked it to me on Instagram. I said, the best thing you could do is just be yourself.
Yep.
And there's really not this right or wrong way or perfect way. And I think even myself, when I try doing, is this the right way to do it? Then it's actually worse. And so sometimes I'm, writing a very short explanation. Sometimes I realize people aren't watching the videos. I'll just use a photo and get some text. You got to just experiment. So I want people to go to the website, infinityfitness.com. I've been reading the articles there. I've used some of those videos of seeing like you and Eric train. He does some unique stuff. He's almost like he does it to you.
There's no messing around. I can tell you, I get calls from some of his patients very often. Like, I want to work out there. And I'm like, you better be careful because it's no holds barred.
Yeah.
I've seen it put people in tears
because
he didn't like the level of effort. And people need to understand, if you're going to take up his time in his gym, he's going to demand a certain level of effort and attention. Otherwise, don't bother. Yeah. Now, he's going to do things such as, well, let's make sure you're doing this particular rehab exercise and it's not causing you pain. And then they might say, well, it's hard. My muscles ache. He's like, it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
But he can provide some very challenging stimuli. And there's been many a situation where he's gone to do a kind of demonstration with a professional team, and some of the athletes are like, I'm not doing that. It's too hard. Okay. So, but we have a lot more to post. I'm working on editing some other videos. I've got a good backlog of things from different seminars and so forth that I'm, going to
nice
gradually post. Yeah.
Right. And what would be cool is we will probably all meet at the next Swiss conference that's in person when Canada opens up.
Yeah, who knows when that'll be. That is a great conference. Ken does a great job lining up speakers, people of interest. He encourages the speakers to interact with people. So anybody that wants to learn, that is an excellent course. And he also has a lot of videos, thousands, I would imagine.
Right. He's
presentation.
I had him on the podcast. Then he's kind of got like a Netflix with all of the speakers. So we're gonna shut it down here. What I like is the message I like to put out to the listeners is, now you know who Scott is. Now you're listening about Infinity Fitness. Now I want them to research. I feel like the best if you want to be a great coach, you got to be a great researcher. You got to dig into the videos. You've got to search through them, pull up some older videos, go on your blog, read the articles. I'm not helping people by only feeding them information and saying, I'll link everything for you on, so this is episode, I think we're on 284, maybe 285, but I'm not going to link everything. I'm going to link a few videos, and then they're going to start digging into your work.
And any of your listeners are welcome to email me anytime. Nice. I always respond, and I'll try and help you. My email is Scott, SCOTT, at infinityfitness.com. That's INFINITY fitness.com. If you're looking for something in particular, if you have a certain question, I'll do whatever I can to help you.
Nice. Next time we chat, Scott, not sure if this is your forte, but maybe we delve into nutrition for the teenagers, because people in their 40s have kids. I got a 15 and a 13-year-old. That will be an interesting one, right?
I've done a lot of consulting for that, built programs for youth athletes. And there are certainly a lot of challenges based on their school schedule and things like that. Believe it or not, that was one of perhaps the benefits, let's call it, of COVID not being in school.
Right.
Is that there were certain youngsters around the country where I'm coordinating with their parents, where they were able to eat more at home because they didn't have a choice.
Yes.
And that was advantageous for a lot of youth athletes.
That'll probably be a topic we'll tackle next.
Sure.
And so that's it, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Strong Life Podcast. Scott Mendelson, infinityfitness.com. Same on Instagram, same on YouTube. A lot of information for you to study and research. And as a coach, I'll go through and see videos, and then I send it to my team of coaches and say, check this out. This is very unique. We should be implementing this. We should test this out. So food for thought for those of you that are coaches running a private facility, or you're at the college sector. It's always good to step outside of your own, what's running through your own mind. Sometimes you get so busy, you almost lose a little creativity when you're too busy. So that's it, guys. We're going to shut it down here. The way you could support the show is you could invest in any of the training courses. You could support our guests like Scott, and the Strong Life Podcast brought to you by my friends over at sorenex.com. So Scott, hang tight. I'm going to shut it down and we'll chat for a quick minute. Again, everybody, thanks for watching and listening. Talk to you soon.